listening to the Fantasy Takeaway Podcast with Murphy Hamilton and Joe Pollock. Proud member of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. Subscribe, listen, take home the title.
What's up, Takeaway Nation? Welcome back to our Week 8 review episode. This time, it's just going to be me and Joe. Sadly, Jeff is sick. Apparently, like a dog. Jeff, we wish you a speedy recovery.
Yeah, I think Jeff's sick with I lost cheap datesitis.
There ain't no need for that kind of bad talk right now. He's in bed sick, and you're going to insult the man?
Well, let's just say maybe he's not sick.
Fair enough. Does that mean Joe won cheap dates? Well, we'll find out later in the show. Joe, I have a question for you. Joe Flacco is blank. Fill in the blank for me.
Being scapegoated because he plays on a terrible football team with a terrible coaching staff. 3rd and 4. Trying to seal the game. You're going to run the ball up the middle with Phillip Lindsay? That's not on Flacco. That's on bad coaching, straight up.
That's what, 3 or 4 games that we lost in the fourth quarter by like a couple of points. 3? That's insane.
3 on game-winning field goals. Buzzer beaters, essentially.
It's ridiculous, man. What did you think of Joe Flacco's comments after the game?
I completely support his comments. The team is not trying to win. They're scared to lose. And that's how you lose football games in the NFL. There is totally a world where this team is 5-3 right now if they have a better coaching staff and they're more aggressive and they're more disciplined on defense. There was a 15-yard penalty to set the other team up for a field goal in all 3 of those games on the final drive.
As a Broncos fan, you just have to just shake your head and go, well, hopefully next season's a little better. Because at this point, it's over.
It's over for sure. I'd like to see what Drew Lock's got. I'd like to see what Brett Rippon's got. Sounds like we're not going to see either this coming week. But, man, this whole Flacco situation, like, he's not hurt. There's no way he's hurt.
No. It's funny that he makes those comments, and then the very next day he has a neck injury. We would have heard about a neck injury that day.
Yeah, and he looked fine while he was making those comments. He was probably more animated than I've ever seen Joe Flacco in my whole life.
And they're not even mulling over like maybe a 1-game benching. They're mulling over putting him on IR. It's astounding.
Yeah, I think they're going to put him on IR and they're going to give him a settlement and cut him.
Absolutely insane. That's not the way I wanted Flacco to go. Neither of us like Flacco, but I mean, this is kind of ridiculous.
They did him dirty, man. Like,
yeah,
that football team is
classless.
bad and he's being scapegoated for it. The offensive line is terrible. Elway's personnel decisions are the biggest problem on that team.
All right, Joe. Well, we got a lot to get into. No, Jeff, you ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
News and notes from across the NFL.
All right, first up, Kenyon Drake is finally free. Kinda. The former Miami back has been traded to the Cardinals for a conditional 2020 pick. I believe right now it's a 6th rounder that could morph into a 5th rounder, depending on how he does.
There is a lot to unpack with this deal. Does this mean that DJ's ankle injury is more serious than they're letting on? Does it mean that Chase Edmonds is more serious with his injury than we thought? Or does this mean that they're going to move DJ to like wide receiver? Are they going to be throwing more of these guys on the field at the same time? Because you really don't want to give up draft capital to get a guy that's a total rental. Like Kenyon Drake's an unrestricted free agent next year.
You'd like it if DJ went to wide receiver, though, right? You've talked about that on the show in the past.
I think he's a better receiver than he is a running back. I think if you throw Christian Kirk on the outside, put DJ in the slot, run 4 wide receiver sets with 1 running back in the backfield and no tight ends, I think that's a recipe for success. He can beat corners, and he can definitely beat nickel corners in coverage.
It's just something to keep an eye on. And the little facet where people are like, what if they trade DJ? We'll know about that by tomorrow. At least that'll be out of the way quickly. Because I hate that speculation. I don't want to see them move DJ.
Yeah, it almost seems like it would be hard to trade him too, because he might not be able to pass a physical tomorrow.
Yeah, you're right. That is a problem on that one.
The one other thing that I think we should mention before we move on is that a 6th rounder that could become a 5th rounder could actually end up being less draft capital for Miami than Arizona gets, depending on the Kenyon Drake contract next year, because they're going to get a compensatory pick of some kind when he leaves and goes and signs somewhere else, unless they re-sign him, obviously.
So this might have just been a good deal for the Cardinals, even if they are just renting him.
Yeah, it could be for sure. Like if he ends up not playing that much, it's a 6th round pick, and then he goes and signs a 3-year, $35 million deal somewhere, and they get a 3rd round compensatory pick. they fleeced Miami on this one big time.
All right, next up, Kyle Allen will continue to start for the Panthers. Ron Rivera confirmed that Cam is still rehabbing and they aren't rushing him back till he's 100%. We don't really do a lot of injuries on our Tuesday show, but I wanted to mention that one.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more to say there. I think Cam will come back when he's fully 100% because obviously Kyle Allen isn't a world beater here, and Cam Newton at 100% can be if you combine his arm and his legs. So we'll see.
I'm just happy they're taking it slowly. Like, don't rush him back. Let him do what he's got to do. Get him 100%. You'll have him for years to come, as opposed to rushing him back and his career's over in 1 or 2 years. All right, moving along. I have another injury thing. Texans defensive star J.J. Watt is out for the season after tearing his pec in Sunday's win over the Raiders. This is just more a mention for that DST if you have the Houston Texans. I'm honestly considering dropping them in the 1 or 2 leagues that I have them in.
Yeah, I don't think they're ownable except in great matchups. I think they're a streaming defense now. It sucks watching a player that's that talented go down year after year after year.
I was taking my storage deposit to the bank, and the Dan Patrick show was on, and they were actually discussing whether or not J.J. Watt would consider retiring after this one. He just keeps getting hurt.
I mean, maybe. I wouldn't be all that surprised. He's made plenty of money. He doesn't really have anything else to prove. He won Defensive Player of the Year, right?
Yeah, he's been to Pro Bowls. The only thing he doesn't have is a ring.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he takes some of next year off and tries to come back healthy to win that Texans team a championship. It's really tough to say at this point. It's all speculation.
All right, and finally, I have a couple players that I want to list out here for the trade deadline tomorrow, or today as you're listening to the show. Robbie Anderson, Josh Norman, O.J. Howard. Joe, have you heard about any other players that are potentially going to be traded tomorrow, or at least mentioned?
Just go look at the bad teams. We've got the Bengals with A.J. Green. We've got the Chargers, Melvin Gordon. Heck, Hunter Henry might even be on the table for the right price. He's an unrestricted free agent next year. It's just guys like that. There's obviously going to be some grumblings. Defensively, you've got Von Miller and Chris Harris with the Broncos, obviously. There's a ton of guys that could get dealt.
A little speculation here. I've heard the Bills are looking to move one of their wide receivers, and I've heard the Patriots are not out of the wide receiver pool yet. What if John Brown went to the Patriots?
Woo! I don't know, man. They really are committed to not throwing the ball downfield. I don't know if you've watched a whole lot of Patriots games because they've been so uncompetitive, but I think Tom Brady's ADOT is like 6. It's super low.
Maybe they should be out of the pool for wide receivers. Just stick with what you got. You got a bunch of low yardage guys. Just do what you can do. They're doing all right so far.
You've got to think, though, that trade wouldn't happen. I think Cole Beasley would fit that team, what they want to do better anyway, but they're not making a trade in the division like that with both teams remaining so competitive. That'd be crazy.
Fair enough. All right, it's time to move on to our cheap date review. Jeff is not here, so let's quickly list his team, and you and I will dissect it real quick, Joe. As you mentioned, he lost. Mason Rudolph, Dalvin Cook, Alexander Mattison, Kenny Stills, D-Hop, Luke Wilson, Leonard Fournette, and the Chargers. He did a pretty good job on players like Cook, who we all agreed on. It was a consensus play. Hopkins, Leonard Fournette. Basically his non-cheap dates.
Yeah, the cheap dates were not good for Jeff this week. And Mason Rudolph, I think, is still sitting negative as we're recording this. He might have just popped over the 0 mark. 0.9 is officially where he's at. So I think he's squarely in last place in this thing. There were some dart throws here that I'm not totally sure about. But like Kenny Stills, we were all on Kenny Stills. And he did. He got the volume. He just didn't convert.
I believe I saw a 70% snap share for Kenny Stills.
Yeah, it was really high. I don't have that number right in front of me, but I'm still going to be on Kenny Stills for DFS because he's got the same kind of upside that Will Fuller has.
And with Will Fuller out, he's going to fill that role perfectly.
Yep.
All right, Joe, moving on to you. How'd your team do this week?
I'd say that essentially out of Ty Johnson, I'm pretty satisfied with this team. Robbie Anderson wasn't the greatest pick here, but he did have the upside. Sam Darnold was okay. I wasn't thrilled about this team. It got me 128.32. Obviously, you and I both had DeAndre Hopkins and Dalvin Cook, so we can talk about them with your smash lineup. Tyler Lockett was good again. Not fantastic, but 19 points, that'll get you through. Jacob Hollister wasn't a good call. The Lions defense, though, the Lions defense was the best cheap date defense of the week for us, so I'm pretty proud of that one. Almost 4X, 3.93.
Actually, you and Jeff were the only ones with D-Hop. I went with a different wide receiver as my upside play.
Oh, word.
All right, well, let's move into my team, Joe. I had Joe Flacco, 7.86, not really that great. He was a dart throw. We actually mentioned we're going to go up in the price of our quarterbacks going forward, give us a little more flexibility, so I won't have to make a Joe Flacco type decision later. Tevin Coleman was my cheap date running back, 40.8 points. That was real good. I got real excited when I realized that he was on my cheap date lineup. Dalvin Cook, like I said, consensus 28.1. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, 1.4 points. I bombed on that pick, but in my fantasy leagues, I needed Aaron Jones to do more, so worked out for me in the long run. Chris Godwin, 10.3. It's kind of like a coin flip. When Godwin does well, Evans does bad. When Evans does well, Godwin does bad. So you just got to hope you land heads, right?
Yeah, for DFS, 10.3 is bad. I'd say if that's his floor, which we've pretty much seen so far this year, Chris Godwin might be the best asset at the wide receiver position to own for redraft fantasy.
100% agree on that one. So moving on, I had Tyler Lockett as another one of my bigger play wide receivers. 19 points. I was real happy with that. Jonnu Smith, 19.8. I'm going to give you the credit for that one, Joe, because you mentioned him on the show before and kind of gave me the inspiration to play him in DFS. So thanks.
He was my favorite tight end play of the week, too. I had 100% exposure on him. I played my cheap dates lineup with him. Man, I wish I would have played Tevin Coleman because I would have hit some serious cash. I barely hit the cash line, but it was a good week. It was a good week for a lot of these guys. Kenny Golladay was a fantastic call, man.
I cannot believe, I was so excited, man. Like this, I was just watching my cheap date lineup on Sunday, just more and more giddy as I went along. I actually wanted cheap dates, but I cursed myself.
This cheap dates lineup also would have hit the cash in all of the tournaments that I played and all of the cash games that I played. So good job.
I jinxed myself though, Joe. You know that, right?
We'll see.
I'm the eternal silver medal. Now I'm going to get bronze every time.
Maybe you just sold yourself short and the universe is like, you need to think better of yourself, Murphy.
Maybe.
Win, win, win.
And I got the Seahawks defense to round this out. They had 9 points. That's respectable. Could have been worse.
Yeah, that was a decent play. They were cheap too. So you don't love it. It's not like having the 49ers or the Patriots this week, which I paid up for in most of my lineups, but it was a good call.
God, can you imagine having the 49ers defense and going against the Patriots defense? Because I did that this week and it was terrifying.
Yeah, I had that too in 2 of my leagues. I have one that's still going, and if Mason Rudolph scores less than 24 points for the rest of the game, I'm gonna pull it out.
Actually, sorry, let's make that more horrifying. I may have had the Niners D, but I had Nick Chubb against the Patriots defense. That was heartbreaking.
Ouch.
I cannot believe I won that matchup.
Yeah, that was scary.
Thank you, Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers. Can we come up with a nickname for those guys? The AA Rons?
AA Rons. Yeah. I like that. That's good stuff.
Booth review.
All right, time for the booth reviews, the what to watch for from last week. Joe, starting with you. What was your first one?
I was watching that Bills and Eagles game, and it was kind of disappointing just because of the weather. I pivoted off of John Brown and Josh Allen pretty much everywhere. I did start Devin Singletary. He got me 14.9 points in one of my big money leagues, so you got to feel pretty good about that. But, man, that ceiling for Josh Allen and John Brown just kind of tanked with the weather. I even pulled both of those guys out of a lot of my season-long lineups, so not really the shootout we were hoping for there.
No, not at all. But there's some things to be happy about. I mean, like Josh Allen owners, I was worried about him this week.
Yeah, Jeff and I made a bet, too, that Josh Allen would have fewer 15-point or fewer games than Kirk Cousins rest of the season, and, I'm up 1-0 now.
I can't wait for Jeff to get back so you can debate that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm into it.
All right, on to me. I was watching that Bears-Chargers game, and I was just mainly seeing if we could abandon ship on the Bears offense. And at this point, I'm just still so confused. Trubisky is bad. The rest of the offense seems to kind of go sluggish. And then Montgomery scores 24 points. I don't know what to do. Fantasy football is a cruel mistress.
I think Allen Robinson is a guy that you can pretty much start every week, though, because Casey Hayward shadowing him was a really tough matchup. And 11.2 points, if that's his floor rest of season, you're loving that based on the draft capital he cost.
He's at least your flex play every week.
Yeah, I have him as my wide receiver too in a lot of leagues, but a lot of those leagues are leagues that have Devontae Adams on the IR. So if I can throw him as my flex rest of season, I'm really excited about that.
All right, well, let me go do my second one. Normally we'd have Jeff in here, but sadly Jeff is sick, like we said. Joe, you said it a few times during the game because I was watching the Packers and the Chiefs game, but I'm going to echo it right now. Was that not one of the best games you've seen in a hot minute?
I think it was the best game of the season so far, and it might be the best game since that Rams Chiefs game last year in prime time. That was awesome. I think that was a better football game than this, but this one was up there, man. Super entertaining. A lot of good defensive plays, a lot of good offense. I mean, even Matt Moore looked like a really good quarterback.
Come on, Matt Moore.
Yes, Matt Moore. Andy Reid could make Jameis Winston into an all-pro quarterback. I'm convinced of it.
Basically, we know what we know from that game. Aaron Rodgers is fantastic. Aaron Jones is everything Joe touted him to be last season. Again, shout out to Joe. You were high on him last year.
I get to take some victory laps on this one.
Yeah, I drafted Aaron Jones on your recommendation because I was still not sold, and I'm really glad I listened to you.
The one thing I would say about Aaron Jones is that maybe he's a sell high candidate right now because they're doing a whole lot of lining him up at wide receiver and putting 2 running backs in the game. And we don't know, but there's a good chance that strategy changes when Devontae Adams comes back and plays 95+% of the snaps. So you could see the usage change a little bit, but he might be their wide receiver too once Devontae Adams comes back.
I mean,
I'm not sure.
Better than Scantling or Allison or Lazard or Kumaro right now, I think.
Lazard looked good, man. We'll give Jeff some credit on that one. I think Lazard is basically just a big wide receiver. He might even be listed at tight end by the time things are all said and done here, but he looked like a good, capable pass catcher in that game.
Yeah, I agree. I was even telling Jeff he was a week early on the hype that he gave for him.
Yep.
All right, Joe, finish us off. What was your other what to watch for?
It was the Pats defense, and they did it again, man. 21 points. The one thing I would say here is I think these guys might be a sell high candidate as well. They've got the Ravens, then they've got a bye, then they've got the Eagles, Cowboys, Texans, Chiefs. They finish up with the Bengals and Bills, so if you can afford to hold 2 defenses, maybe start playing the matchups, and they're probably better than most streaming defenses, even in those tougher games like the Chiefs. But man, they are doing some astonishing things. They're basically a QB2 in your DST spot.
Looking at their playoff schedule, because you have this listed through week 17 or week 16?
It's week 16. So 15 and 16 is Bills and Bengals. So they're a team that
you want to own in the playoffs.
If you don't get a ton of capital, you want to hold on to them. But I think there are people that will trade you a wide receiver 2 for the Patriots defense. And if you're needy, I'd suggest it because you can probably get 10 streaming off the waiver wire in a good week.
Oh, easily. Especially if you listen to this show.
Yeah, we've been doing good on cheap date defenses lately.
All right, that'll do it for our booth review. You ready to move on, Joe?
Let's do it.
The takeaway.
All right, Joe, I'm going to kick this off. My biggest takeaway from the weekend is Deshaun Watson is ridiculous. And I'm going to just basically point out that one play. I mean, the whole game he did pretty well, but that one play, kicked in the eye, adjusts his helmet, throws a blind touchdown. That's some Brett Favre level right there.
Yeah, that was crazy, man. He's looking really good. I think my takeaway kind of feeds right into that. I was watching Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers is playing without any wide receivers. We just talked about it. I think that these two are going to be fighting it out for QB1 on the season with Lamar Jackson. It's going to be really exciting to watch for fantasy down the stretch.
You know, I think Aaron Rodgers feels like one of those points you can make when you say fantasy players have goldfish memories, because everybody talks about, well, Pat Mahomes can make like Mecole Hardman and everybody else really good around him. Aaron Rodgers can make other players that you wouldn't have starting anywhere else good when he's lost everybody else. He's that good of a quarterback. People seem to forget that.
Allen Lazard is not an NFL level wide receiver. He might be a low end NFL level tight end, but Rodgers is making him look like a viable player in the NFL, and it's astonishing to watch. And that one throw, like you talked about the Deshaun Watson throw, the throw that he made off balance, falling out of the pocket to Jamal Williams might have been the best throw I've seen this year. He threw it from a modified platform off his back foot, falling down, and put it into a 2-foot window in the back of the end zone for a running back to catch. That was insane.
I'll give it second place. The Deshaun Watson throw was still just slightly over it because he was blind. He admitted later he couldn't see through that pass blind. That's insane right there.
Sure, but the difficulty of the throw was like a 2.
You're right.
He did it without an eye. Like the difficulty of that Aaron Rodgers throw is like a 9.5. Like if he misses it by 8 inches, it's not a touchdown and it might be a pick.
It's debatable. That's the best part about this. It's debatable. Both plays were just that fantastic.
Not negotiable, Murph. You're wrong.
Whatever, Joe. We'll agree to disagree.
All right.
Tapping the wire.
All right. Time to tap the wire. Talk about some waiver wire pickups. Let's start with quarterbacks. Mainly, I just have Sam Darnold. We'll get into some streamer level guys here in a little bit, but as far as picking up for the rest of the season, the Jets have a fantastic end of season playoffs kind of time for fantasy. So I'm still going to mention Sam Darnold. I don't think he's that bad. I think when you play the Patriots, you're going to look bad. I think he's had a rough couple weeks, but don't give up on him yet. I'm not ready to jump ship on Sam Darnold.
Yeah, and he has, like you said, had some pretty darn tough matchups. I'm not giving up on him at all, and he performed pretty well in this one. It was a middle-of-the-road matchup, but he still got you like 16 points in most scoring formats. If you're playing 6-point TD, it was even more than that. They've already played New England twice. We don't have to worry about that anymore. They play Miami next week, the Giants after that, Washington after that, Oakland after that, Cincinnati after that, and the Dolphins again in week 14. Their next even remotely tough matchup is Baltimore. I think that it is bye season for Sam Darnold and for Robbie Anderson. As long as Robbie Anderson stays with the Jets.
Yeah, I think it'll take a lot for them to shift him, but if they've mentioned they're thinking about it, that's worrisome right there for me.
Yeah. I wouldn't buy it. Well, I mean, if you buy him, you're probably having him go to a better situation. So I'd probably buy either way on Robbie Anderson.
Where would you want to see him go if you could pick a team?
The Packers, obviously.
You just want any good wide receiver to go to the Packers alongside
I want
Adams.
any deep ball wide receiver that's good to go to the Packers. Like, imagine trying to cover Devontae Adams in the short, intermediate, and long, and then trying to cover Robbie Anderson over the top. You can't do it. With Aaron Rodgers throwing the football, you literally can't do it.
No. That'd be a place I'd want to see John Brown go if they traded him too. I'd like that.
Sure, he's in the exact same category.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's probably a better short and intermediate receiver than Robbie Anderson. So if they traded John Brown to the Packers, I'd be ecstatic.
What about his fantasy value? Again, hypothetically, but if he went there, would you be starting him every week now, or would you want to see what happens for a little while?
John Brown or Robbie Anderson?
John Brown.
I was already starting John Brown every week. He's gotten you 10 points pretty much every week. He's a solid flex play. I think even this week he had a rough game because of the wind, and he was still like wide receiver 36.
All right, moving on to running backs. The Dolphins running backs, Mark Walton or Kalen Ballage. Right now it's looking like Mark Walton is the guy I'd lean towards, but it could kind of still go up in the air either way. But with Kenyon Drake gone, it's kind of wide open.
Still a total dart throw, obviously, because this offense is so bad and so inconsistent. But if you're in a deeper league and those guys are available, they're certainly break glass in case of emergency kind of plays.
As of right now, while we're recording the show, Mark Walton has 7 attempts for 15 yards. Kalen Ballage has 3 for 8. They've both been targeted once. Again, I'm leaning Walton, but I think either or at this point until you know more.
It's just whoever gets the touchdown. Like, pick them up, see if this offense gets any better. Like, maybe the offensive line gels a little bit and they start to become a little bit more efficient. But these guys are stashes, not starts, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking of stashes, I have Darius Geis listed here. It's kind of one of those times where you might want to start thinking ahead. He's still on track for a week 11 return. Could be there for the end of the season / playoffs. Just somebody to keep an eye on. I honestly wonder if Adrian Peterson can stay healthy that long. If Darius Geis comes back to a nobody else in that backfield situation, it's free money at that point. The usage is
he could be a league winner down the stretch for sure, if that's the case. If he's back at 100%, which you've got to question that with a guy like Darius Geis with how long it's taken him to get back from this injury. I hate it. It was just like watching Dalvin Cook last year. Stop trying to bring guys back so fast. 29% ownership, though. He's out there in a lot of leagues. I think he's worth a stash, especially if you got an IR slot. Mm-hmm. Like if you got Will Fuller in your IR slot, pick up Darius Geis and drop Will Fuller because they said this is a multi-week injury and Darius Geis could easily be back on your team giving you fantasy points before Will Fuller. At a position with more scarcity, nonetheless.
Yep, 100% agree with you. Joe, you got any low-owned running backs before we move on?
I do. I have a couple here. Trey Carson had 12 attempts for the Lions. We didn't see the trade with Kenyon Drake going there, so that's a situation to keep an eye on. They really want to run the football, and everybody went out and spent all their budget on Ty Johnson, and he wasn't even the lead running back in that offense. Wow, wow, wow.
I avoided all Ty Johnson. I didn't pay anything for him.
I bid like $23 on him and didn't get it. I wasn't sad about it at all after this week. We'll see. Maybe he becomes the guy in that offense, but I think we're going to see a nasty committee there. The other guy that I have listed here is Raquel Armstead. He only got 21% of the snaps, but we all know about Leonard Fournette's injury history. So for me right now, Raquel Armstead is a top 3 handcuff in the league.
Yeah, someone in our admins and mods chat for our Facebook group was talking about that, the fact that Leonard Fournette's not been on the injury report in a minute. So he's jinxed. He'll be getting hurt this weekend.
Maybe.
All right, moving on to wide receivers. Actually, quite a long list for this one. Again, this time of year, the waiver wire segment's going to be some stashes as well. Just some guys you might want to hold on to in case of injuries, that kind of thing. Danny Amendola has been getting a lot of work for the Lions. Cole Beasley, same thing for the Bills. Kenny Stills, we've talked about already. Preston Williams and Demaryius Thomas with an asterisk on that, depending on Anderson's status after the trade deadline. If they trade Robbie Anderson, I'm picking up Demaryius Thomas in a lot of places.
If any of these guys are available in your league and you have a free bench spot, I don't mind putting them there as a stash, but like, look at what Danny Amendola has been doing. He's a start if you're in an emergency. Cole Beasley is a great bye week fill-in. He's been getting 10 plus almost every week. Preston Williams, he's in a bad offense, but he's leading the league in targets at the wide receiver position for rookies. So all of these guys, I think, are viable starts depending on the situation. And Demaryius Thomas, I'm not thrilled about, but like you said, if Robbie Anderson gets traded, all of a sudden his stock goes through the roof.
Just for reference, right here at the start of the second half, Preston Williams has 5 targets, 4 receptions, 42 yards. He's already got you 8.2 points in PPR at the half for a bad team.
Yeah, totally. And he's doing that almost every week. He doesn't have that ugly floor like Devontae Parker, and he might not have the same ceiling because he's not running as many vertical routes, but he's still got some upside.
Any low-owned guys you got for me, Joe?
I have a ton. Darius Slayton is still owned in fewer than 10% of leagues. That one seems obvious to me. Russell Gage for the Falcons, he's jumping into that Mohamed Sanu role. He's not getting that same snap share that Sanu was getting. He's getting more like Ridley was getting pre-trade, but he's a guy that they like him a lot out there. He could have some upside later in the season. If the Browns offense ever gets going, Antonio Callaway is the clear-cut wide receiver 3 in that offense, and we've seen some durability issues with Landry so far this year. He's missed quite a few snaps. I don't think he's missed any games yet, has he?
No.
Maybe one. But he's off the field for quite a few snaps so far this year. This is a way deeper league play. Fred Brown. He out-snapped Deshaun Hamilton for the Broncos. So in a world where Drew Lock or Brett Rippon or one of these younger quarterbacks comes in and this offense gets better like we've seen with a few of these other teams, Fred Brown could be a decent dynasty stash, a deep league stash. Allen Lazard, Josh Reynolds. Allen Lazard looks like he was the leading snap getter in week 8 for the Packers. And then Josh Reynolds, obviously Brandon Cook suffered his second concussion of the season. So all of a sudden Josh Reynolds jumps into an 80+% snap share with that situation.
I like it. All right, let's move into tight ends. I've got 3 for you. Darren Fells, the Texans. He had a pretty good week this week. Dallas Goedert is getting a lot more snaps and a lot more share of the snaps. I think Ertz is having a pretty rough time right now, and Ertz owners, as one, are very worried. And Jonnu Smith, played him on cheap dates, got me 19.2 points. Pick him up. He's going to have a lot of targets with Delaney Walker out.
As long as Delaney Walker is out, Jonnu Smith is a plug-and-play start. Dallas Goedert is interesting because he's still not as good as Zach Ertz, but Zach Ertz is getting bracketed constantly. They're really trying to take him out of the game, and it's working because the Eagles are on a skid. I would probably pick up Darren Fells before I'd pick up Dallas Goedert just because he's the number 1 tight end in a high-powered offense, and he's getting targeted in the red zone. But I think all of these guys are viable plays, especially as streamers. If they're out there and you can stream any of these 3 guys in a good matchup, you should do it 10 times out of 10.
Any low-owned tight ends you want to mention, Joe?
I got a few. Tyler Eifert is still only 11% owned. He had a pretty good week this week, and he broke the 70% snap share mark. So he's one of those he's a carriage till midnight. I don't know when midnight's going to be. He's going to turn into a pumpkin at some point, but you can ride him while you can.
I've also heard that he might be a trade target for some teams too. So
if he went to the Patriots, all of a sudden he is like, woo, one of the best options out there at tight end. I also have Ryan Griffin. We don't know when Chris Herndon's going to be back, but Ryan Griffin got a 90+% snap share. Obviously, you're not expecting the blow-up week that he had this week, but he could be good as a streamer. And then Jacob Hollister, he's a deeper league, 2 tight end kind of league guy, but he's still running more routes and getting more targets than Luke Wilson. So he's out there. I don't think I would pick him up except in absolute desperation mode, but he's an option if you absolutely got nothing else.
Joe, you have the weirdest pop culture references to your NFL player names. You got Wilson.
Castaway? Come on. That's a great movie. Tom Hanks. You have something against Tom Hanks, don't you, Murray?
I do not. Are you kidding? Forrest? You think I'd have anything against Forrest?
Yes, I do think you have some against Forrest as anything but Forrest Gump, obviously.
No, not actually. I like Tom Hanks a lot, and he produced 2 of my favorite shows on television. So, can't hate on him.
I had somebody tell me that Castaway was a bad movie the other day. That's a bad take. That is like
it's not a bad movie.
Take. It's a good movie. It's not a great movie, obviously, but it's pretty good. It's compelling for 45 minutes without dialogue.
If only this show could be compelling for 45 minutes without dialogue. All right, Joe, let's talk about some streamer candidates. You have a list of guys we made it before the show that are potential streamers for next week, maybe a couple weeks. Let's go over those guys. Let's start with quarterbacks. You had a few of those.
Quarterbacks, I like Gardner Minshew. I'm not in love with the matchup, but I think that he's a play that you can make, and he's still lowly owned. For some reason, he keeps putting up numbers. Derek Carr versus Detroit. Detroit has been hemorrhaging points to the quarterback position. Ryan Tannehill versus Carolina. I like that matchup as well. I think those are all guys. I wouldn't go out and spend a ton of fab, but if you're looking for that play, like Drew Brees is on bye, Matt Ryan is hurt and on bye. So there's some guys that are going to need to be streaming quarterbacks this year or this week. And I like all those plays all right. Derek Carr against Detroit is really interesting.
I agree. I like it. I mean, he's been looking a lot better the last 2 weeks. And Tyrell Williams being back is a game changer for that offense.
Tyrell Williams being back is huge. And Detroit has been susceptible to the big play. And Tyrell Williams is a big play guy.
Yep, him and Waller. All right, the other side of this is defenses. Throw out some defenses you think are good streamers this week.
We mentioned how Chicago can't move the football at all. Philly is not good on the back end, but I think that they can get pressure, and Trubisky just takes too long to throw the football. So I think there's some upside with sacks there. Any team that's playing the Bucs has some upside. Obviously, it can go really bad if Jameis has a good Jameis day, but we've seen good Jameis days with 3 interceptions lately. So there's upside even if they do put up 30 points. The Cowboys versus the Giants. Daniel Jones has kind of been in that same situation. He's making a lot of rookie mistakes. The Cowboys have a good defense. I could see this being a really nice spot for that Cowboys DST. And then the Jets versus Miami. It's not a fantastic play. Fitzmagic has been better than Josh Rosen, but I still think we're going to see turnovers. The Jets defense isn't great, but I think all of those teams can get you some points as streaming options this week.
Fitzmagic's at the ball with Eifert, right? They both can turn into pumpkins at any time.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. They're riding in a similar, if not the same carriage.
All right, that does it for our Week 8 review. This was a good one. I miss Jeff, though.
I miss Jeff. Jokes. The conversation is definitely less when it's just you and I, but I think we still had all the same information that we would have had with Jeff.
Just less dad jokes.
Less dad jokes, and maybe a few less deeper takes. He has some really nice takes on the deeper guys.
He does. He does. Jeff, I hope you're listening to this, and I hope you're just complimenting you.
And also talking smack. You
Yeah,
got to keep a balance here. It's like running versus passing. Like, you got to have a balance to succeed.
Exactly. This show is like an NFL game. Some weeks. All right. For Joe at Human Stat Sheet on Twitter, for myself at Murphy50, and of course, Jeff at NFL_DiMatteo. We'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.
Later.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Takeaway Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And follow the show on Twitter at FF Takeaway.